Good morning, everyone. It is 10 a.m. Here we go. Thank you for joining us for our session on permits demystified. You'll notice that the slide says part one, because when we were chatting, we realized there was so much detail to talk about that we just couldn't cover them all in one short session. So we were going to have two more in the new year. So stay tuned for that. Right now, this is part one. You'll also notice that we've disabled the chat, but the Q&A is alive and well. So please put your questions there. We will be addressing all questions at the end. Also, if you're curious, we will be recording this session and it will be sent out to all attendees. And with that, let me introduce you to our speaker. Meet Eric Jensen. He's a builder, a self-proclaimed tech nerd, and a successful local business owner. Eric is the founder of Spruce Hill Homes, one of the North Shore's most respected custom home building and renovation companies. They do everything actually from $50,000 kitchen makeovers to multi-million dollar dream homes. And you remember the tech nerd bit I said a few seconds ago? Well, he's got a degree in computer science, and he brings that discipline to this work and is a relentless process optimizer. You'll see that he delivers practical advice. And as Eric says, he drops knowledge bombs like dropping nails from a framing gun, fast, sharp, and hitting the mark. It's like a builder dad joke, I think. Anyway, here we go. I am throwing it to you, Eric. Tell us what you know.
Thank you for that magnificent introduction, Jenny. It is a I feel very lucky to be here and to have been afforded this opportunity. So thank you. Um, have any of you guys ever fought City Hall and won? Uh, I did, and I have, and it actually happened last week. I was so frustrated about some mechanical equipment that we'd put in an attic, and the building officials were giving us a hard time about it. So I put together a video, sent it off to mayor and council, and lo and behold, on Friday last week, my mechanical equipment location was approved. So turns out you can fight City Hall and win sometimes. And part of that is dealing with permits, getting permits approved, and getting revisions approved as well. So let's jump in and talk a little bit more about what it is, what permits are, and how today is going to go. So myself, as already said, I have my degree in computer science. I've born and raised on the North Shore, industry leader, I think, in construct. I'm telling you this just to kind of underscore my credibility, I hope. I'm a member of the Home Builders Association of Vancouver. I'm on the government relations committee for them and on the renovation and custom builder committee. Over the years, we've won a couple awards and been nominated for over 20. Um, what else do you guys want to know? I got a lot of experience, obviously, with dealing with design challenges, permitting, budgeting, client expectations. So I have a pretty good idea of what people are going through when they're thinking about doing any sort of construction. And so I'd say the bottom line on me is I'm a straight talker and I really do care about your success, and I'm here to support everybody on this webinar. So this is how we've decided to break down the sessions. Session one is today. And so we're going to talk about why you need building permits and when you need them. Session two, we're going to talk about what can go wrong if you ignore getting permits and look at liability, reputational harm, that sort of thing. And in session three, we're going to talk about how to spot the risks before taking a listing and or what to look for in service of your buyers, right? I get that you might want to get all of this out of one session. Unfortunately, there's just too much to go through, and we wouldn't be doing it justice or you justice by going at such a surface level on all of this information. So, why are you guys here today? You're here to protect your clients and your commissions. I want you to be the smartest person in the room when you are talking to clients about project potential and permitting. And I'm hoping that I'll also give you some tips and tricks to save time and avoid headaches. And I think all of us in this day and age are looking to avoid headaches wherever possible. So after the 3 sessions, my hope is that you're going to walk away with confidence when you're dealing with your buyers and sellers, being able to discuss permit issues clearly and professionally, be able to identify risk and have some good risk identification tools in your toolkit. And then lastly, hopefully get you so that you have fewer surprises post closing, so that when you have closed that deal with your clients, you can sail off into the sunset and know that your clients are well looked after. So let's get to the meat and potatoes of why permits matter. They matter for a lot of reasons. These are like the top 5 or 6 that I think are the most important, and that's what I would like to get into today. So, life safety. When we talk about life safety, when you get permits, what you are doing is you're kind of buying protection for your physical safety, right? You're going to make sure by getting a permit, you know that structural work is going to be done properly, fire separation if you're doing multiple units, egress in case of fire, any sort of gas leaks, or any sort of gas apparatus is installed correctly so your house doesn't explode. I think that's kind of an important something to aim for. And then obviously electrical is done properly so that homes don't catch on fire and burn to the ground, which is, as it turns out, not ideal. The other issue that can come up without permits is your people's insurance validity, right? Insurance companies do not like to pay out. And if we give them reasons to not pay out, they may not pay out. So if somebody does work without permits, it's entirely possible that the insurance company can deny a claim because the work was done without permits. I mean, it's not guaranteed, but again, it's a possibility. And so, is it really worth the risk? And that's a question that, only you and your clients can know. But I would suggest, for the most part, it's not worth the risk. The next piece here is mortgage approval, right? Lenders care about having assets that are secure and saleable in case you stop paying your bill. And so if you have unpermitted work and it gets sniffed out by an appraiser when they're there, that could cause problems on closing, or at least on getting financing. So that's another solid reason for why permits matter, right? Which of course leads to resale protection, right? If buyer, I mean, I don't know how many of you guys have gone into a home that has obvious unpermitted work, and your buyer's like, yeah, no, I'm good, I'm walking away from this house, not interested, not wanting to take on that risk. And obviously at some point in time, like, everything is purchasable at the right price, and if you have unpermitted work, it may actually reduce the value of the home. The next piece here is municipal records, title, zoning, usage, square footage. They all tie back to permits. And if you don't get a permit and you construct, and we'll talk more about this in a minute, but if you don't get a permit and you build something that you're not supposed to, you run into some problems. So, at the end of the day, permits themselves are not red tape, but there sure is a hell of a lot of red tape to get them sometimes. They are proof the work in your home is legal, insurable, financeable, and sellable. And that's really the takeaway, like the big picture takeaway from why permits matter, right? Now, when we talk about impact on key deals, what we're thinking about and what we're looking about, and like I said earlier here, is mortgage approval, right? Appraisers can and will flag illegal suites, additions that there's no record of there being before, finished basements that look not quite right. And appraisers are pretty smart people, and they have to protect themselves and they have to protect the institution that's going to be lending money. So unpermitted work can cause problems. So just be aware of that. Again, as I said, lenders may reduce the value of the home or the borrowable value of the home. So that's a major risk, I think. And they could demand that you legalize it. So, if somebody does a basement suite and doesn't get permits for doing that, there are specific things that need to be done in order to legalize a basement suite, such as like its own independent electrical panel. There's lots of other stuff. And so legalizing a suite after the fact can be extremely costly. And finally, lenders could potentially just refuse financing altogether. They could just say, we're not prepared to lend against this property because you've done work that is unpermitted and we're unsure of how the work was done and we have no record, no inspections, not willing to take that risk. So, when we move from lenders, we go on to insurance because, they're kind of like-minded, aren't they? Insurance claims can deny based off fire, flood, or injury, right? Like if you've done unpermitted work and any of those three things happen, they could deny your claim. And I would say like anytime, and again, we'll talk more about this in a couple of minutes here, but anytime you're doing any sort of electrical or gas work and obviously structural work, you really people are taking on unnecessary risk. I mean, getting a building permit can be a major pain in the butt. I'll be the first to admit that. But the risk of not getting them, I don't know if it's worth the reward. Again, on resale value, we can literally lower the appraised value by doing unpermitted work, forcing price reductions, scares off buyers, like we already talked about. And where things can get really ugly is lawsuits, right? If these things aren't discussed and dealt with up front, buyer can sue the seller, buyer can sue realtor. You guys, we don't want that. Everyone lawyers up, and that's just ugly. And my hope for you and for everybody attending today is that we'll walk away with some solid talking points for our clients and for ourselves. To make sure that people are making awesome choices. So the other piece that can come up here is municipal enforcement for unpermitted work, right? Now, you may not know this, but inspectors and bylaw enforcement is a complaint driven operation, right? The bylaw people and inspectors aren't driving around looking to see if people are doing unpermitted work or not. They actually don't really care, as it turns out, for the most part. Where they start to care is when a neighbor or somebody complains about the work that's being done. And once a complaint is filed, that's when they take action to come in and deal with things. And so if you are caught doing unpermitted work, and again, we're going to talk more about this in session 2 and 3, but the municipalities have the authority to order you to open up those freshly painted walls, remove that newly installed kitchen in your basement suite, or the one that's kind of been on the news, and I actually got on the news some magically, with respect to that home that was built in West Van up on the hill there, and they basically built like a 1,500 square foot secondary dwelling unit on the property and got no permits for it. I mean, it was finished really nicely. It looks really good. But no permits on the top of a bank, super dangerous for everybody involved. And those people are being forced to tear that home down. I mean, of course, it's got to go through the court still, but it will ultimately it will that structure is going to be forced to get torn down, and that's hundreds of thousands of dollars of work, maybe even over $1 million actually, down the drain. Not good. um, Getting the other thing that happens too, of course, is you'll be ordered to get all the work that's been done brought up to the current code. So again, there's a lot of risks for doing work without permits. And yes, they are a major pain in the butt to get. I'm not going to try and pretend like they aren't. The city of Vancouver has actually made some strides recently to improve permitting process for small projects, but it is definitely a painful process in many cases. So I mean, I understand that there's some frictional effort to get the permits, but I don't know. I don't know, guys. I don't know if it's worth the risk not to. So, when are permits needed? Right? If you're building a new home, if you're constructing an addition, any sort of extra rooms, garages, second stories, any sort of outbuilding that's more than 100 square feet. So you can build a 10 by 10 shed in most jurisdictions in the lower mainland without having to get any building permits for that. You are required still to know what your setbacks need to be, and you need to make sure that there's another Jenny here. Um, make sure that you know where your setbacks are for the property, and that accessory building or shed needs to be built within your setbacks of the property. Um, Sorry, that confused me for a second there. Just threw me off my game for a moment. I'll get my feet back underneath myself. So that includes so again, permits are going to be required. They're going to safety rules, zoning laws, environmental regs. Inspectors are going to be checking everything like foundations, framing, final inspection to make sure everything's been done and safe. I think that's the biggest thing, everybody, right? Like getting a permit really should be giving people a sense of safety, and that's the big thing in my mind, both physical and financial safety, right? So structural renovations are like what those sort of projects are projects that mean removing load bearing walls and installing beams. uh, Perhaps you are changing a foundation or changing a roof line or something like that. Like these things all require building permits. Adding windows, believe it or not, requires building permits. And I mean, once you know that like adding a window is actually a structural something to do, then it starts to make more sense. The other piece of the puzzle on that as well, it's important for you guys to all know, is that there are really very severe limitations to how much window we can put on the sides of our homes. And the pro tip for you guys is the reason why we are limited to how many windows we can put on the sides of our homes is it helps to prevent this spread of fire going down a city block or a street or whatever, right? So if you have fewer windows, the fire can't jump into one home and move its way through that home and into the next as easily. So they really do limit how many square feet of window you can have on the sides of your house. So again, if you're adding a window and you're not getting a permit, you could find yourself in trouble in the future. And then the other thing that I hear a lot of people be surprised at is that even if you're moving a non-load bearing wall, you still are supposed to get a building permit. So permits are not just required for structural modifications, they're required if you're making any sort of layout change. Even if you're moving the wall a couple of inches, letter of the law says you are required to get a building permit. And where this starts to become significantly more important are in homes that have fire sprinklers in them. I think you'll see a lot of homes in West Van, for example, have fire sprinklers in them because they're too far away from a fire station. So when a home is a certain distance away from a fire station, then it's required under the municipal bylaws to have its own internal fire suppression system. So again, if you're moving walls or changing wall locations, that could affect adversely the performance of that fire suppression system. So just these are all of the sorts of things that kind of go into the rationale behind why you're supposed to get a building permit for those kinds of projects. I mean, I think it should be obvious, but maybe it's not. Electrical, plumbing, and HVAC. Like if you're doing any new or relocated electrical wiring, you absolutely need building, or it's not a building permit at that point in time. It's an electrical permit or a plumbing permit, or HVAC. Pro tip on the HVAC side of things, it turns out in residential construction, HVAC installers are not required to have any sort of certificate. That doesn't mean they all don't. Pro tip is find an HVAC company that has a certified HVAC technician on their team that's part of the installation team. Just trust me, you'll save yourself a lot of headache and hassle in the future. This is lived experience that I'm sharing with you for free. And then obviously, like if you're upgrading your electrical panel, like especially in this day and age, a lot of people are going from 100 amp service to 200. Certainly, in some of the renovations and builds that we're doing now, we're seeing the need to put in 320 amp panels, even 400 amp panels. That those things all require permits. I mean, it's kind of obvious, but again, like this is safety stuff. We do not want homes to catch fire. And again, if you're getting permits, by getting a permit, only a licensed professional can pull that permit, right? So if the plumber can't pull a permit, then that tells you that A, aren't licensed, or B, don't have liability insurance, right? The municipalities, to the best of my understanding, anyways, the municipalities require that these tradespeople present their liability insurance and their tickets every year to update their business license in that municipality. And if they don't have a business license in that municipality, they cannot pull a building permit. I think that's all I want to talk about there. I'm going to just stop for a quick tea break. Delicious. All right, exterior work. Permits are often needed for decks, especially raised decks. Again, this is going to be on a jurisdiction to jurisdiction basis, again, based on my knowledge. But typically, most decks where the finished surface is 2 feet or less from the ground below do not require building permits. The second we get above 2 feet, we are required to get a building permit for that new deck or renovated deck, by the way. Like if you're redoing a deck, you're supposed to get a building permit as well. If you're doing any sort of porch or balcony off a bedroom or something like that, you would and should get a building permit. Fences above a certain height require building permits. I mean, again, it's jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Some areas, you're only allowed to put in an 8 foot tall fence. And then at the backyard and some on the side, and then it lowers down to 6 and then down to 4. Anyways, there are some limitations, it turns out, based off of property location. Like corner lots, you have a limitation as to what kind of fence you can put in, because you can't have a 6 foot tall fence on a corner because it prevents people from being able to see around the corner when they're driving. So there are some real limitations and some trickery there just to be aware of. Retaining walls. So any retaining wall over 4 feet of exposed face needs a building permit and structural engineering. So what do I mean by 4 feet of exposed face? I mean the finished retaining wall has 4 feet or more of itself above ground. I mean, if you're building a 4 foot tall retaining wall, well, say you're building a 36-inch tall, 3 foot tall retaining wall, that 3 foot wall is going to have a foot and a half of stuff underneath it, footings and a little bit more, to get below the frost line, right? And again, that varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, depending on what the frost line is, where you're at. For most of the lower mainland, I'm pretty sure it's 18 inches. But again, it varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So know where you're at, and most people will know like what they need to go to in terms of getting below the frost line for a footing. Sorry for confusing things, maybe I did there, but hopefully not. Anyways, you're going to have a portion of the wall that's below ground, and then you're going to have a portion of the wall that's above ground. It's only the portion of the wall above the ground that matters. And in some areas, actually, if you're replacing your roof, you are supposed to get a building permit. I didn't actually know that until I was preparing for this presentation. But yes, I mean, anytime you're changing your building envelope, you probably should be inquiring about whether or not you need a permit. And most jurisdictions have uh, have like an FAQ page on their website that talks about whether or not you need building permits or not. And that sort of information and how to look for those things we're going to cover in session 3, I think. Yeah. Now, when don't we need a permit? Well, we don't really need permits if we are painting or changing out flooring or cabinets and countertops or replacing fixtures if they're staying in the same place. Any sort of minor repair and maintenance, anything cosmetic typically does not require a permit because they don't affect the structure or the safety of the house. As long as nothing structural or mechanical has changed, permits are typically not required. Hope that helps. The next piece, and again, like this ties back to that West Van house that I talked about and referred to earlier. Permit regulations and requirements vary drastically from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Each city, it seems like these days anyways, has its own building code practically, and certainly its own group of bylaws. And so knowing what those are and making sure that we're working within those bylaws will make sure that people don't have unneeded headaches in the future. Let's say it like that. Again, session 3 is going to cover how quickly and easily many of the risks to your buyers can be found and discovered, and what those are, and what you guys should be considering when you're helping your buyers. And so in session 3, I'm going to show you some tools to quickly find the risks on practically every property in the Lower Mainland. Again, it's jurisdiction by jurisdiction, but session 3, I'll show you at least how to do that in the district in North Van. The other issues that can come up are heritage sites. I'm sure some of you guys on this call have come up against a home that has some sort of heritage restriction on it. Having your home designated as heritage is not a win. I'm sorry to say. It means there's some major limitations as to what you can do in the future to that home. But it's definitely something that I want you guys to all be aware of and know to make sure you avoid in the future. Sorry, my phone's ringing. Forgot to put it on Do Not Disturb. And then environmental regulations. Again, we're going to talk about that in session 3 and looking how to uncover and discover what those things may or may not be. But those are the sorts of pitfalls that you can avoid by getting a building permit and permitting properly. All right. Just always check with the local building authority, everybody. It's not that difficult. So let's just talk about and jump into some timelines here, right? Um, they look simple on paper. Reality is they're a little bit more unpredictable. And here's what I think you guys should be thinking about. So minor renovations, right? And so a minor renovation is something cosmetic. So, re and re of a bathroom. Again, not moving any walls, right? Just like simply replacing everything where it was with something that's newer and prettier. Um, Typical permit timelines are 6 to 8 weeks. The city of North Van, we've seen that stretch out to 6 to 8 months, believe it or not. So again, just be aware of that. Again, for anybody that doesn't know, by the way, re and re equals remove and replace. If you didn't know that, now you know. For new builds, we're seeing permit timelines, somewhere in the 6 to 12 month range, which, for the record, I think is egregiously atrocious and totally unacceptable. But of course, my lone voice is not moving the needle very far on that complaint bandwagon. But nonetheless, that's the current operating parameters that we're dealing with. So know before you go, if you're thinking about building a new home, you're looking at 6 to 12 months just in permitting, never mind construction. So now you have that little truth nugget in your back pocket to tell clients when you're meeting with them, if you didn't already know that. Part of the reason, and I do have this on firsthand knowledge, part of the reason for these issues and delays is there's some genius in their infinite wisdom 2 or 3 years ago changed the definition of a word in the building inspector. I can't remember the act. I should have written it down and I didn't. But there is an act that defines who can or cannot be a building official. And what they did is they said, well, now building officials need to have this specific designation, and without it, you can't be a building official. So, pre this change, somebody like me could have been hired on by a municipality as an inspector. I mean, why not? I've been doing it for a long time. I know a thing or two about building. Um, that's no longer a possibility. I would need to go get some training and get the certificate in order to be a building inspector. And so what that's done is that's really narrowed down the pool of people that are able to be building officials. And I would also say it's removed a huge pool of people that have like a decent amount of common sense and practical experience. And that's probably a big part of the problem of everybody dealing with city halls these days and getting permits is most of the people that are working there have very little lived experience working in the construction industry. Um, the other piece that really does complicate things is policy layering, right? What happened, and what I mean by that is you have building codes that are layered on top of bylaws that are layered on top of interpretations. And the story I talked about at the beginning of the session today, it was an interpretation that the chief building official had of how to interpret the building code, and I just disagreed with his interpretation. And I mean, turns out that like my interpretation just made more sense, and I mean, I think it did too. Um, Nonetheless, you have all of these different policy layers on there, and it just makes everything so much more complicated and convoluted and more difficult for city staff to figure out. So that is the other piece of the puzzle. Again, when you're talking with clients, like these are the sorts of complications that you can talk to and speak to. And again, we're going to talk more about what some of these policies are and aren't in sessions 2 and 3. Finally, departmental or interdepartmental communication at almost every municipality is currently just a dog's breakfast. They don't talk to each other almost at all. And so, that is currently the biggest piece that's slowing down the permitting process from my experience anyways, is that you have the engineering department saying you can't do this, then you have the environmental department saying, well, you can't do this either, and then you have the building department saying, well, then you can't do this. And so it's a never ending cluster um, of issues. So, interdepartmental communication is definitely something that causes a lot of headache, heartache, and hassle for us and our clients. But again, these are the things that we need to think about. These are the things that I want you thinking about. And these are what I mean, that is really the conclusion of why and when permits matter. At this point in time, I think we're going to open it up to Q&A. If you've got any questions, let us know. Before we go into that Q&A, I'll probably say this a couple of times. We would love to stay connected with everybody. We'd love for you to sign up to our newsletter. I promise we only email out once a week or once a month rather. I promise, like, it's not like a daily or weekly like spam. And we work really hard to deliver really interesting and useful content in our newsletter. And I would obviously also love to have you subscribe to our YouTube channel and or follow us on Instagram if you are so inclined. And let's move in.
All right. Thank you, Eric. I have to say, I laughed out loud a couple times and then guiltily looked over to make sure I was muted. Before we get into the questions, and we do have a few, I want to one, explain the other Jenny. It is not AI deep fake, and I'm so sorry that threw you off, Eric. It's because while you were talking, I noticed in a side chat with staff that the member relations team was looking for the link to the event to share with a member who had called in. So I said, well, here, just use mine,
Use
not
mine, yeah.
remembering that Zoom personalizes all the links. So I'm sorry
Hey,
to the member.
I knew I was gonna be like, okay, like shaky for a couple of seconds. I knew I'd put. Not a big deal. Not a big deal.
So I'm
I mean, if I
sorry
was
for
a
the
more
member
seasoned
also who is
professional, it
now
wouldn't have
having
thrown me off
to
at all.
show my name there. And I can't deny, Eric, as you were giving examples, I was cringing a little bit, especially when you talked about the perhaps tall-ish fence. Did that on a property that I lived in. The neighbor worked for the city, FYI. And his wife said, that fence is taller than we expected. I had no idea that could have gone so sideways. And lastly, one more point before we get into the questions. When you were just talking about the interpretation of the rules, I feel like you were being a little humble there. Your sentence kind of died off. Should I understand that you were able to get the municipality to agree with your interpretation? There you go. All right. I like that. What I like about that is you were
I
looking
was
out for your clients and you were just
yes,
working hard at it.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
I was pretty chuffed with myself.
All right. So let's go to the questions here. Um, so one of the members is wondering if you, the speaker, has experience of insurance claim problems from unpermitted enclosed balcony, because we do see a lot of those around.
One more time.
If you've ever seen in your experience problems with insurance claims related to unpermitted enclosed balconies.
I haven't seen any insurance claims related to that. I haven't been
Okay.
involved with or brought into anything like that before.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Um, Let's try another one. Does the same apply to stratas? Now, unfortunately, when we do questions at the end like this, it's hard to know what the same is, but hopefully the rest of the questions will help. Does the same apply to stratas? I've asked questions at DNV, oh, must be North Van, and they
hmm
seem to be hesitant when it is a strata.
I would be curious to get the context of
Know the
that again,
context?
but certainly, like when it comes to dealing with stratas, you if you're doing work in a strata complex, you also need to get permission from the strata council to do the work. And I think the district of North Van, for sure, the district of West Van actually requires that letter from strata council before they'll issue the building permit.
Okay. And Michael is the one who posed the question. If there's more context that you think would be more helpful, feel free to just send another question through. Not a problem at all. We've also buffered some time for questions because we knew there would be quite a few. All right. So here's another one. Once the permit is drawn, the work is completed. Do we need to inform the insurance and or the mortgage provider?
It depends what the project is. For renovation, actually, yeah, it depends on the size and the scope of the project. If you
Okay.
are doing a small renovation, like a kitchen or a bathroom or something like that, the lender, unless you're getting financing for the renovation, they're not even going to know that you're doing anything, so they're not
Mhm.
going to care. And the insurance company also isn't going to care either, unless you have maybe upgraded some wiring or plumbing and improved it, and it might bring your insurance costs down. I think some insurance companies, like if you put in some sort of water main shut off device, you can save some money. There's other
Mhm.
having a smoke alarm that is monitored by a security company, I think in some instances can
Yep.
lower your insurance
I agree
costs
with
as
you on that.
well. Certainly, if you so where I would draw the differentiation there, Jenny, is when we are dealing with any sort of project where you've had to pull out course of construction insurance. And that's probably the delineating factor. And usually, you're only going to be pulling COC insurance when you are moving out of the home, and that is usually going to be like a much larger than
Mhm.
normal sort of project. Or, I mean, it's a significant project, so you're going to want to update the insurance company with the new value of your home, right? Because the reconstruction cost is going to go up, like your home, like the value, the reconstruction cost in
Right.
case of like total loss, right?
Mhm.
You're gonna want to make sure that you have the right value in your homeowner's insurance for sure. It was insurance and lenders. Lenders again, like I mean, I haven't really had it where I've needed. I'm not familiar of any examples where you need to let the lender know that the work
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
done or not. I mean, again, typically after most projects, most people go into some sort of refinancing to get everything into one mortgage so that it's just
Right,
one manageable payment.
right.
But yeah, does that help?
Yeah, I certainly, I feel you've answered the question. I can also say from personal experience that if you, and you touched on this, if you have to move out of the home for the job, whether you have to or you choose to move out, you definitely need to let your insurance company know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I mean, that's a great point, Jenny, because there's a most insurance policies. Sorry, I'm just moving my keyboard out of the way. Most insurance policies actually will not cover you if you if you're not living in the home. Like most insurance
Hmm.
policies will have like you can be absent from the home for X number of days, and
Right.
after X number of days, your insurance could be null and void. So if you're going on an
Yes.
extended vacation, we're required to have somebody come by and check in on the house and that sort of thing. So just,
Hmm.
no,
Hmm.
every insurance policy is different. So just,
Exactly. So it all
yeah,
comes down to check with your insurance broker.
yeah, yeah.
All right. Next question. Seeing as how a retaining wall over 4 feet needs a permit, if a non-bearing load wall is removed, like a small one, say 4 by 8 foot, um, is there also a limit on size for that non-bearing load removal of just a cosmetic wall?
I think I know where the question is going with that. I think so. My response is thus: if you are removing a wall that's like a pony wall, maybe you're going to replace a pony wall at the top of some stairs with a railing or something like that. I don't think you need a permit for that. Where you do need a permit is if the wall or the section of wall has a top and a bottom, right? So any section of wall that you're removing or adding, if it's connected to the ceiling and the floor, you're supposed to get a permit.
Okay. All right. Related to electrical and gas fitting, doesn't electrical and gas fitting go through Safety Tech BC?
Depends on your jurisdiction.
Oh, interesting.
Lions Bay has one set of inspectors and rules for the utilities. West Van has something different. North Van has something different. So it's really jurisdiction to
Okay.
jurisdiction. Yeah.
All right. And are you typically provided any documentation of permit by municipalities? And I'm not sure, Paul, who posed the question, are you meaning like proof that you got a permit? If that's what you mean, do you want to answer that, Eric? I guess the permit would be the proof.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question. Was it Paul?
Yes, Paul.
Yeah. Thanks for asking, Paul. So the answer to your question is like yes, the you should be able to ask for and receive a copy of your physical building permit. I mean, it could be in PDF, like okay. But absolutely, like at any point in time, the person who owns the property that is having the work done, asking to see a copy of the building permit should be a nothing burger to whomever it is that you're doing the work. Like they should be like,
Excellent.
yeah, let me get that out of my email and send it to you. The other pro tip for everybody on the call is to remind themselves and their clients that they can actually request on the owner's authorization form that they are on the email list for any sort of applications that are going on at the house. So, for example, like when we do a permit application for our projects, we'll typically put the project manager, the designer, maybe Carrie, sometimes myself, put our email addresses in there so that when there are any sort of status updates, we get notified of those status updates as well.
And one that uh, just segues nicely to this, you might have just answered it. From the realtor perspective, how can you check to see if permits have been taken out on past work?
Yes. Um, Sign up for session 3.
But if they need help right now, between now and session 3,
The short answer is you need to go to City Hall and make a request. And you
Okay.
may need to have the current owner's authorization form to make that request. But that is definitely
Understood.
something that I want to talk about and we'll be talking about is
It's a big
exactly
one for
that.
sure. Mhm.
Yeah, because it turns out like just calling doesn't really do much. And emailing sometimes doesn't work either. It's actually quite atrocious, to be honest,
Mm,
how much or how little these people realize they can have an effect on people's lives.
that's
And
just it. Yeah.
it, anyways, yeah, you really do need to do your due diligence. And I'll definitely, like, not to be too cute, but we're
But yeah,
definitely
but we'll
gonna,
be talking about that more.
yeah, definitely gonna dig into that in session 3, like big time, because it's
It's
really, really important to do.
it's a great example of how there's just too much information to fit into one session, right?
Yep.
Um, okay, I believe this is related to an outbuilding, perhaps. Is a 9 by 12 allowed without permit? I thought I read it's now up to 108 square feet.
Jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Uh,
Okay.
Most places it's 100 square feet.
Okay.
But
Sophia, if
it,
there was more context to your question that you feel we've missed, please feel free to just send us another question. All right.
yeah, I'm gonna just to talk to Sophia a little bit more there on session
Okay.
2. I'm gonna talk about where you can look for these things. Session 2 and 3, I'm gonna show you where you can look for those things
Okay.
and
All right.
like the bylaws, how to find them, how to understand them.
Okay. Sounds good. Brett says he needed to upgrade the panel to add an over-the-stove microwave, and the inspector wanted to inspect all the receptacles in the condo, but none of them were touched during the install of the panel. Is that necessary? Have you seen this before?
So they put in a new panel.
They upgraded the panel because they needed to add a microwave over the stove and clearly got a permit because there was an inspector. And the inspector wanted to not only check out the panel, it seems, but they wanted to look at all the receptacles in the condo, even though none of them were touched during the install of the panel, of the upgraded panel.
You know, it feels pretty unusual to me. I think it really is an inspector to inspector sort of situation.
Mhm.
I'm surprised that you had to get a new panel to put in an OTR microwave. That's a new one. It's only a 15 amp circuit typically. But I mean, I could see the rationale behind wanting to do that though, Jenny, because the the new building code requires that we put arc fault breakers in almost every
Right.
plug now. Everybody is familiar with GFCIs, right? Like you got them in the kitchen, in your bathrooms,
Bathrooms. Mm.
outside, like any place where you might, step in water and touch electricity. But theoretically, to prevent fires, they've now demanded that we're basically putting arc fault breakers everywhere, which is a breaker that basically turns off every time you turn on your corded vacuum.
We're
They're
not here
so
to talk
annoying.
about the legislation, just here to explain it.
Yep. uh,
Or rather,
Anyways,
I shouldn't say to defend the legislation. All
yeah, yeah. Well,
right.
any device that arcs when the electric motor turns on throws the arc fault breaker into the off position.
That is a challenge for sure.
Yes.
Okay, Terrence would like to know, you mentioned that decks do not need a permit if they are under 2 feet high, but is that not also conditional based on the sitting of the deck, example, site coverage, and whether it is attached, detached to the principal building?
Yes. Yes. And yes.
Okay, good catch, Terrence. All right. Um, Atlas would like to know, hi, Atlas. In terms of attached homes, do we need to get both strata permit and city permit for any non-cosmetic renovation?
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
Absolutely.
simple,
Yeah.
simple.
Like any strata building, right? Before you're moving any walls. I mean, I think most stratas want to know if you're gonna do any work in your unit, right? I mean, stratas are concerned. I mean, I think I used to be on a strata council, and the number one issue that came up was flooding.
Mm,
Right. And you get some donut that's putting butter down the carburetor or bacon grease or something like that, and lo and behold, the pipe stops accepting water because it's clogged with bacon fat. um Shocking. But nonetheless, flooding
yeah,
was the biggest issue, and that's what stratas are trying to protect themselves from.
yeah, yeah. Marnie says, isn't a bathroom renovation, well, actually, I'm not sure if those are typos in the beginning of the question. Is a bathroom renovation not cosmetic? If nothing is moved, why is a permit required?
So bathroom renovation, you are not required if you're just doing a remove and replace.
Oh, a re and
um
re. I clearly don't know what a re and re is. So, and even though I heard you say it, but I had missed part of it.
Remove and replace.
There you go. Is a re and re bathroom renovation not cosmetic?
It
If
is
nothing,
cosmetic, so you
okay.
don't need to get a building permit. However, Eric suggests very strongly that you get electrical and plumbing permits.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And I'm sorry, Marnie, that I was confused at the earlier part. All right. Jason would like to know if a permit is required for adding a concrete slab on some area of the front yard or backyard, or like how about putting tile in the yard?
Interestingly enough, no. It's a goofy piece of like construction and how the municipalities work. Landscaping typically does not require any sort of building permit whatsoever. There are restrictions to how tall you can put something in your boulevard. Like
Mm-hmm.
Game District of North Van, I think it's like a meter. But yeah, I mean, it's so goofy because if you're doing like a new home or a renovation and you submit plans and you've got like all of this like lovely patio area planned out, they might be like, no, 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 you've got too much impermeable um structure on the
Mm-hmm.
property.
Mm-hmm.
But then you finish a project and do it after the fact, and it's just, I don't know, it's a gray area.
Yeah. Jason, I will say if the project is in Richmond, you definitely want to talk to the city because the city actually, from personal experience, felt that our driveway was too big and one square of the driveway was not allowed to be to have the cement poured. We needed more green space. Ridiculous. Um, that's just Jenny though. Um, Chris wants to know what are the costs to get through permits, i.e. a new home in West Van, and I have heard that 4 months recently is doable. Could that be possible?
District of West Van has really got their stuff together. So
Yay.
it is plausible that you could get a permit in 4 months. I haven't witnessed it or experienced it myself yet. I'm looking forward to that. Um, um, I suppose what the costs are to get through that are really dependent on what we're doing and what we're including in that number. Um, Really, I mean, I'm going to be a jackass and just say that question is kind of like asking how long is a piece of string. It's it's very difficult to know. It is totally dependent on the size of the home, the complexity of the property, right? Like if you have a
Right.
perfectly flat property, it's going to be that much simpler um to deal with versus doing something that's got like lots of slope to it. Obviously, and we're going to talk about this in session 2 and 3, uh, just in terms of like development permits that are required, and that can drive up the cost of getting permits. The other piece of the pie that comes into the cost of getting a permit is in our service upgrades. So even though um, it's on the city's property, you still get to pay for them to upgrade your your storm, sewer, and water mains.
I love it.
We would need a lot of beer and a lot more time and wine for me to go off on a tangent on that appropriately enough. But
So what
but
I got from your answer was, I mean, it could happen, but you would not count on that when budgeting for time.
correct.
Okay.
Yes, I would not base my profit and financial life on a 4 month building permit.
You got it.
And
Okay.
again, like, and I don't mean to be I don't mean to be a jackass about it, but they're really like every property, every home, every like it's just so it varies so
Individual.
much.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. You mentioned that you learned recently while preparing for this that in some jurisdictions, roof replacement needs a permit. Do you know why?
Make sure that the my suspicion for it is to ensure that the underlayment is done to avoid ice damming. Do
Okay.
do we know what ice damming is?
I do not.
So ice damming is a in the wintertime you have like water, you have snow melting on your roof
Yes.
and it gets down to the eaves and then it freezes where it starts to get colder because like your
Yes.
soffits aren't heated, right? So
Right.
the water can start to freeze by the time it gets to your soffit. And then what happens is this is going to be the world's worst drawing, but you know what? I mean, effectively,
I'm getting a visual personally of what you're describing.
so
Can't really see it, but
that's your roof. This
oh,
ice,
okay.
it
Yeah. Okay.
basically it starts to build like a pool. And what happens is like you get this lake sort of feature forming on your roof. And if your roof isn't done correctly, you can have leaks come in because it's basically holding water like a pool on your roof, which is not
Got
good.
it. Got it.
Yeah.
So they want to make sure you're doing it right, and you've taken those factors into
Yeah.
consideration.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, is there any credibility to having a licensed and insured electrician and or plumber do the work, but without permits? Did you
Yes.
say if they are not licensed with the municipality, they would not be approved to pull a permit?
Correct. That's what I said. I would only ever hire a licensed. I, again, like this is not actually in any of the sessions, but happy to speak to it. Right. One of the things that we do really well at Spruce Hill is make sure that all of our trade partners have proper liability insurance and work safe coverage. I actually developed like a pretty nifty way to like inform everybody on the team who is and isn't good to work with. Um, but you absolutely want to make sure that the person that you're working with has liability insurance and WorkSafe BC coverage. I mean, it was a while ago, and I'm sure people have forgotten, but our beloved ex premier Gordon Campbell got sued because a worker got injured on a home that he was building or renovating, and the prime contractor didn't have WorkSafe coverage, and that the liability then went to the homeowner.
Right,
So it
right.
really
That
like
hurts.
like it, you might feel like saving that $500 is going to be so worth it, but like it's not worth it when that $500 turns into a couple million in
Well, that's
damages.
just it. You never
Yeah.
know if something's going to go wrong, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What to do when a home has been renovated without permits over 10 years ago? And that feeds well into if the client already has the work done without a permit, what are the remedies? So I'm giving you both those questions at the same time. One's over 10 years ago, the other one doesn't specify.
Um, hope that the person that's going to buy it doesn't care. I really, I mean, that's all you can do. It is possible to get it approved or get it, um, yeah, it's possible to get it approved after the fact, but it's extremely challenging and more often than not is going to require opening up walls and that sort of thing. Yeah, it's the work's already been done without permits. It's been done. I mean, you can't undo it, and you could just say, well, you should listen to Eric and get a permit when you're supposed to get a permit, because it's just not worth it.
So,
And there's
so
really,
unless you're willing to risk the city coming in and saying the only way we can approve this is to open up walls or whatever it is to see that the work was done well.
yeah.
Okay. All
Yeah, so
right.
like, I mean, again, where you can, if you're really trying to walk the line, so to speak, um, you know, take a ton of pictures, right? and if they have a ton of pictures of the work before the insulation and drywall went in, life might be a little bit easier. Certainly, like if I am a buyer's agent and I am coaching my client and it's a project that doesn't have any permits, I would A, lever that as a bargaining chip. But B, I would try to calm my client's fears and see if there were any pictures of the work that was done before insulation went in, because if it looks like the work was clean and professional and well done, and if the people that did the work were licensed,
Hmm.
I mean, you're should be pretty safe, right? But I
Yeah.
mean, if it let's put it this way: if you walk into a home and it just feels wrong, run.
Yeah. There you go. Okay. Raman would like to know what methodology or criteria is used to establish the top of bank for a creek adjacent property.
Um, Surveyors establish that, so you have to hire a professional surveyor, and they determine what top of bank is. And to be perfectly honest with you, I don't know the answer.
Okay.
I just
All right.
I just know that I get the information from free plug for Hobbs, Winter, and McDonald. They do great work for us, and they're great surveyors.
Well, one of the things that we say to the members often is don't guess if it's not your area of expertise. And you're not a surveyor, you're a builder. So it makes all the sense in the world for you to say you're not 100% sure. We wouldn't
Yeah,
want to have you guess and then have members walk away with,
the
not
wrong
100%
information.
fact. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. If the building is old and based on old codes, and if you want to modify a part of it, can the city ask for new codes for the whole building? And I'm not sure if the building is multi-home or just one big house.
doesn't matter in any case. Um, Only if you open up the walls.
Okay, that's good to know.
If you remove the drywall, if the drywall is removed, you will be and are required to bring that area up to current code. So that means insulation needs to be up to current code, as does electrical and plumbing. Plumbing's generally not that big a deal, but electrical certainly is changing quite a bit, um, or has changed over the last 5 years, anyways. Yeah.
All right. So going back to one where the work was already done without the permits. Um, so in order to get a retroactive approval, so let's assume the person wants to do all the right things and they're willing to open up a wall or lift the floor or whatever they're willing to do to legalize the reno. Is the waiting time the same as applying for a permit?
Yes.
Okay. Um, how does the District of North Van compare to the City of North Vancouver in terms of dealing with them for permits? They've heard that the District of North Van is stricter.
Um, let's just say that they both have challenges, and they vary depending on what the challenge is. But I would say the city of North Van is certainly slower at getting permits out for the most part. The district of North Van, really the biggest stumbling block for the district of North Van is their engineering and environmental departments. They changed the definition of stormwater, and stormwater management in the district of North Van is a nightmare. Is like the most kind, polite, professional description I can use to describe it, Jenny. It's a train wreck. And for example, the home I'm sitting in right now, we bought this property to build a home, and we wanted to have a basement for my wife's mom, our basement suite, for
Yeah.
my wife's mom, and we were denied a basement.
What I took away from you more than any words in the answer was that you chuckled and dropped your head before you could answer the question. I was like, that speaks 1,000 words. Okay. What has West Van or North Van districts done to minimize time, cost, and risk, to obtain development and building permits to encourage developer builders to build affordable housing under the BC government's mandate? Are we seeing much to improve efficiency to obtain permits now?
Nothing. They've only made it worse.
They've only made it worse. Good to hear. But did I not hear earlier the city of Van, though, is making strides?
For small projects. Yeah.
Small projects. Okay. All right. Okay. What are the extra factors and complexity of getting permits to build a 4 or 6 plex and the timeline needed? It's probably very
The
fitting
complexity
considering.
for those projects is going to be your services, right? The biggest issue, and that's where, I mean, we could, I happily get on a stage and have a policy debate with somebody about the electrification situation that we've got going on. The biggest hurdle that we're having right now, everybody, is getting hydro upgrades done.
Oh,
Like we've got a house that we're building in Edgemont Village right now, and we're basically we have the house done. The clients can't move in because we've been waiting 8 months for the hydro upgrade, and they're coming in at the end of January at this stage.
wow.
Yeah,
Oh, that
yeah,
hurts. That
yeah,
really hurts.
yeah. Hydro is the biggest stumbling block. Um, and then I think everything else from what I understand anyways. Again, like full disclosure, I don't have a ton of experience applying for permits for four and
Mhm.
six plexes, just for the record. But I do believe the city of Vancouver has done a really good job of coming up with some like prepackaged plans that you can pick from, and like they're basically pre-approved.
Yeah.
um District of North Van and North Shore is well behind the eight ball,
Okay.
like
All right.
way behind. Yeah.
Um, I mean, sometimes that's just the facts. The facts are the facts.
Yep.
Um, can you get home permits for self renovations?
Yes.
Oh, can you get homeowner permits? My bad.
Yes. Not
Okay.
for new construction. If you're building a new home, you have to be a licensed builder.
Okay.
And getting like a homeowner can get a approval for being like to get the home warranty. Like in order to build a new home, you have to be able to provide the 2 5 10 home warranty insurance.
Okay. Okay.
And so, like for example, for me, we had to when we got our builder's license, we had to give the insurance provider 20 grand cash that's sitting in their bank account, and that's so that if I don't go and fix something that somebody complains about after the fact, they have some money to pay for the
Wow.
repairs.
Okay.
um Never been an issue, but nonetheless there's cash there in case I'm a bad boy.
Okay.
And so they want to make sure, I mean, really, they want to make sure that whoever's building the home knows what they're doing. So there's definitely
Right.
some hoops to jump through for a homeowner or property owner to get their to build a new home. But yeah,
Okay. And the way the question was phrased, there was a renovation, so it sounds
okay,
like it wasn't a new build.
yeah,
I will also say I'm noticing the time. It's 7 after 11, so we've run long. If you're not in a hurry, we're not in a hurry. We've probably got another 20 more minutes that we can, because we've got
I
lots of
can hang
questions
out
over
for
here.
another. I'm good to go for another. I got a hard at 11:30 for sure,
Okay,
but I'm
perfect.
if this is a value to the member, and I mean
It seems
people
to
are
be we've
still,
got over 20 more questions still.
yeah, there's still a lot of people watching, so thank you everybody.
And it shows why we need more than one session. All right. And this one is not a question. It's let Eric know that his intake form for the newsletter via the QR code is not capturing contact details. There's a notification that appears that says this is in preview mode. No information will be sent.
Oh, cinders and ashes. Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. So thank you, Michael, for that heads up. All right. Next question. How do you verify a builder is licensed by a specific municipality as licenses are issued by a central regulator? Or was the reference to a business license?
Great question and lots of confusion there. Um, so there's a difference between a builder's license and a business license.
Okay,
So my builder's license allows me to build anywhere in the province. In order for me to build in Kelowna, I would need to get a business license from the city of Kelowna
got
to
it.
operate and pull permits and do work in Kelowna. So, like for example, Spruce Hill has business licenses in Vancouver, Burnaby, Coquitlam, across the North Shore. Um, Looking to expand to Langley and Abbotsford in the near future here, but yeah,
Okay. And how do you check to see if, just follow up, how do you check to see if they do have a business permit?
You mean business license?
Or sorry, yes.
Ask to see it.
Okay, done.
I mean,
Easy.
again, like all of this stuff, like we share all this stuff with our clients. It's literally like in our like presentation when we go to meet with
Right.
people. It's like if you're dealing with somebody that knows what they're doing and is reputable and professional, like asking for this sort of documentation should be like a
Easy peasy.
yeah, like I mean
Yeah.
24-hour turnaround time max.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Is a shop drawing required for newly added exterior aluminum steps? It's very specific. My client had an engineer approval letter for these steps at their new build in Burnaby. However, the inspector asked for shop drawings. Have you ever run into something like that?
Um, I mean, typically inspectors will be happy with just getting a field memo from the engineer that's looked at the stairs. I mean, they do sometimes want to have documentation at the city level in terms of like, I mean, it's all about covering their butts, right? Everybody, like that's the
Of
whole
course.
name of the game. As to they're looking to remove or eliminate liability on them. Um, so yeah, I don't know.
Okay. All right. When helping a client buy a property, how can someone know that some of the work was done without permit? For example, the sellers added a new window or removed a wall, work that is not obvious to spot, so you wouldn't know to ask if permits were pulled for that work.
We're for sure going to talk more about this in sessions 2 and 3, but to answer that question today, if the work looks new, um, what I would do is I would typically search the address in Google and look for any sort of historical real estate listings and look to
Mhm.
see where walls are and just cross reference that to see if walls have been removed, for
Okay.
what it looks like today.
Mhm.
And what you could look for is just is something new. I mean, you can
Right.
tell if something is brand new versus a couple years old, right? And certainly, like if something's 10 years old, like
Compared to the rest of the property,
yeah, yeah.
I see. That makes sense. That's a good tip. I would call that a pro tip, Eric. Just saying. Look for something new.
Pro tip.
Okay. Pro tip. Have you seen anything in the BC Building Code as of March 2024 that includes tiny homes?
Nope.
No. All right. Do you need a permit to add an arch wall between the dining room and living room? It's technically a
Yes.
wall from floor to roof, but also not.
The
You know
answer
the
is
realtors, they're
yes.
wanting to get that wiggle room of negotiation in there.
Yeah, yeah. The answer is yes, and it goes back to what the example I gave with respect to fire sprinklers, right? Like
Yeah.
if you're adding wall, like if you're adding a drop in a sprinkled home, like that could prevent the fire sprinkler from operating the way that it's meant to.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Here's a nice tricky one. Can you get a permit for work done in an unauthorized suite? So the suite's unauthorized. You're going to do some work in there.
Yes.
You can.
Yeah.
Interesting. Good
Yeah.
answer for you, Robert. All right. Is any permit required for balcony waterproofing repair or renewal? I'm not sure what renewal is meant in that case. Maybe renewing the waterproofing layer. I
So,
don't know.
I mean, strata obviously, absolutely, 100% for sure. If it's on a single family detached home, maybe.
Okay.
Um, and I say maybe because you are affecting the building envelope, and I would talk to the municipality and ask what they think. That's what I
Okay.
would do.
Safe.
I
Hmm.
think I like. I mean, again, like if you have some sort of like parapet deck or like an enclosed balcony or something like that. I mean, we're also wanting, and my hope for everybody on the session is like like permits are like a major CYA operation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
while it can and it does often make the work cost more, it also means that the work is done safely and that you won't have water come into your home. So um, I would absolutely just check and make sure. I don't think there's going to be a hard and fast rule there, but
Okay.
my gut would be to probably get permits.
Okay. And similarly, so this is someone asking about permits for a roof, because again, building envelope. When clients hire a roofing service to fix or to replace, is the responsibility to file for permit under the roofing professional, like their company, or the homeowner?
Sorry, one more time, please.
Um, somebody's getting work done to their roof. It could be a fix or replacing. Is it the responsibility of the roofing professional to get the permit for this or
Yes,
the homeowner?
it
Yes,
would
the
be
roofing professional?
again like it may not be required. And in
Right,
fact,
but if
like
it is,
it,
it's the professional that's getting it.
yeah. I mean, again, you can get it yourself, but realistically, at the end of the day, for me, anyways, I want the trade to get the permit themselves because, like, part of me giving their final payment is contingent on them passing that inspection,
Got it.
right?
Okay,
Like, I don't want to have the hassle of like calling for an inspection, and
agreed.
or meeting
Yeah.
the building inspector on site or whatever. Like, I
Mhm.
mean, I yeah,
Makes sense.
we
That's
yeah.
what you're paying them for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay. Newell's curious if you have any experience with or knowledge of fire suppression sprinklers on roofs or under eaves being mandated or explored in forest fire prone regions.
There's been talk about it. I think it's smart.
Okay.
It definitely requires a different system than what you would use inside of your house because you can't use water for those systems. I think you got to use some sort of powder or something like that because it obviously can't freeze, right?
Right.
Um, it's a
When you
totally
say there's
different
talk
system.
about it, there's talk about it where? With which entities?
With the province, because that would be a building code requirement. I mean, it could potentially be a bylaw requirement, but I feel like that's like uh, punching. I always get confused a little bit, Jenny, as to like which entity is it, local or provincial, that
Yeah.
you know triggers those sorts of changes. Um, I mean, I'll tell you what, if I was doing if I was doing a home near a wildfire area, I would definitely make sure that I've got at least on the corners of that house a few spigots, so that
Hmm.
I can set up sprinklers and make sure that I can water down the yard. And obviously, if you're someplace where, and if there could be a forest fire, the best thing that you can do is get a couple of sprinklers up on your roof. As long as you
Yeah.
can keep your
I've heard
roof
that.
wet, it won't catch
Hmm.
fire. And that's
Hmm.
usually where the fires start,
Hmm.
is on the roof.
But the good news is it sounds like people at higher levels are talking about this and considering these changes.
Yeah, I mean, it would obviously save homes in the event of a forest fire, but I would imagine that that's like a $20,000 hit to the budget if people are
Probably.
required to
Mhm.
do that.
Yeah. Okay. In a concrete high rise, where'd the question go? In a concrete high rise with no sprinklers and no load-bearing walls, is a permit needed to move, remove, or add an interior wall? Non-load bearing.
Yes, anytime we are moving any wall, whether or not it's structural or non-structural, you are supposed. I use supposed to because I try not to be super black and white on these things because this is like I know the people that are on this call and I know a lot of their clients. Um, uh, I also say you're not supposed to speed. You're also not supposed to change lanes in the middle of an intersection. You're definitely supposed to get a permit for moving or removing any portion of an interior wall.
Got it. Um, so we have talked about permits retroactively and all of that. I guess this is a slightly different spin. How difficult is it to acquire a permit for work done retroactively, i.e. during the sale process? The lack of a permit was discovered during a home inspection process. So I'm not sure how the lack of a permit would be discovered by the appraiser. I don't think they're calling the cities, but so Again, though, this falls into the same conversation we've been having, right? If you want the city to approve the work that's been done already without a permit, the seller needs to be willing to risk that the work be undone to see how well it was done. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, you really, like, I mean, this is for, do we think this is for a secondary suite sort of
No,
potential
well, it doesn't
situation,
say. It
or?
just says for work done retroactively during the sale process, the lack of a permit was discovered.
Yeah, I mean, again, like you're gonna have to, in almost every case, open up walls,
Yeah,
and you're gonna have to, in order to get that right, like when we're doing our, like when we're doing framing inspection, really at that point in time, the inspector's collecting paperwork. They're looking
yeah,
for your structural engineer field memo, geotechnical field memo, um, all of that sort of stuff. And of course, you've already passed your plumbing and electrical, so you need to make sure your plumbing and electrical are done correctly. Um, and then other inspections that we have to do are insulation inspection. So you're going to also need to be able to show that the home is correctly insulated. Um, like it can really be Pandora's box
it
on
depends. Yeah,
getting approval after the fact.
yeah.
The
Okay.
um the other issue that comes in, oh, I had something smart to say and I've lost it. Stupid ADD. If I remember, I'll bring it back up.
Okay. All right. I know this moment very well. Do you know if Vancouver would assist in exploring building assisted living facility in a single resident dwelling zoning area, as apparently there's an example in Burnaby? Are you familiar with this?
Nope,
Okay.
I'm not
Sorry,
familiar with
Mary.
it.
Um,
For the
do you
record,
need,
like I think any, sorry, just to answer that question though, is to the best of my knowledge, any municipality in the Lower Mainland would be would work with somebody to do some sort of like
okay.
scenario like that. Yeah, like I mean, anything to do with that is generally they try to make that sort of that sort of thing happen. And certainly if you can't do it through the normal routes, you can potentially get variance. Again, that's something that we're going to talk about in session 2 or 3, I don't
Two.
remember, but
Okay.
variance is a possibility. You just have to be able to prove hardship, and I would say like in this particular use case, it feels like you could probably show hardship.
Okay. All righty. Do you need a permit for a stair lift?
Yes.
All right. In a commercial unit, are permits required to add a non-load bearing dividing wall? Don't know if there's a distinction there between the commercial and residential. I know you've talked about it on the residential
Adding
side.
or removing any wall anywhere, you're supposed to get a building permit.
Okay. Um, Peter says, thank you, Eric and Jenny. Very informative. See you in session 2. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Peter.
We've we've got 12 more questions and about that same 8 more minutes. If BP was expired, but the builder was still working on site without extending the permit, what's in store for the owner?
I mean, it depends on the builder's relationship with the municipality and the owner's relationship with the municipality. But I mean, I feel like there would more often than not be an opportunity to go in there with hat in hand and beg for forgiveness and just be like, oh, I
Yeah.
forgot to extend the permit. I'm so sorry. Can I get an extension, please?
Okay.
I mean, they're usually pretty good about that stuff, but I mean, they can also be fairly cold hearted as well.
Yes. Okay. Eric, please clarify about the consequences if contractors do not get a permit. My understanding is that even though it is the duty of the contractor to obtain a permit, the municipality holds the owner responsible for unpermitted work. For example, the house in West Van mentioned in the North Shore News that built a whole addition near a creek. The contractor didn't pull permits. The municipality of West Van is now requiring the addition to be demolished. That's the one you were talking about, and it is the owner's problem now.
Well, it is, but actually, it isn't just. And through being involved in that, I actually learned that in the district of West Van specifically, anybody involved in the work is jointly and severally liable for the restitution of things. So, actually, for that home in West Van, the builder the contractor that was involved in that could very plausibly be financially liable
Right.
for restitution. Like that person could be um, in a real sticky situation. And in fact, like that's actually changed how we've approached a couple of projects that we're working on because I mean, obviously, like one of my biggest concerns for me is making sure I can stay in business year over
Well,
year.
exactly. Mhm.
And for me, like it's just not worth taking on that kind of liability. It's just not.
Yeah, because I could see how a client might say to the contractor, "Oh, this is an easy one," you know, yeah, and just have a verbal agreement that they're not going to pull a permit. And then
Yeah,
down the road, it's like, well, that was in hindsight, poor decision. Okay.
yeah.
Are you seeing many development permits being issued in regards to Bill 44, the densification of single family lots in any of the areas that you're working in?
I'm not seeing it happen. I'm not seeing a lot of it happen yet. I mean, I don't know why it's not happening, to be honest. But again, you know, I mean, if I may just get on my soapbox for a second, like this density initiative that has been thrust upon us,
Yes.
it's probably the dumbest thing ever.
Oh,
And I say that because there's no infrastructure improvements that are being considered, thought about, dealt with. and
okay.
and
That
i'm
makes
and I'm
sense.
not like a lot of times, like I was talking with one of the counselors from the district and she's like, oh, I'm tired of hearing people talk about the traffic, yada yada yada. I'm like, dude, I'm not talking about the traffic. I'm talking about like, where are we going to get the additional water from for all of these new bodies?
Right.
Where are we
Right.
going to, like, I mean,
The
we
services, like you
we
said.
we already have a $4 billion sewage treatment plant going on the North Shore here. Is that going to be sufficient for these extra bodies? Moreover, are the pipes in the street sufficient to take all of the sewage to the sewage treatment plant? Like there's no talk of infrastructure improvements to facilitate the increase in density, right? Like if you take a street that has 20 homes on it and then you make it have 60 homes on it, I mean, it stands to reason that there's going to be a lot more sewage, a lot more water required. And
Yeah.
as I already talked about earlier, hydro is a major, major, major issue.
Eric, you're worrying about the details, the politicians. They don't worry about that. Just make it happen. Do, do you need, okay, 3 minutes left, and I've got two questions. Do you need a permit to install a fast EV charger in the garage?
Yes.
Thank you, Eric, for, I guess it wasn't a question. Thank you, Eric, for all the info today, and Jenny for moderating. Thank you, Michael. Looking forward to the next session. Look at
Um,
that.
that is amazing. Thank you for that feedback, everybody. I did update the QR, my team,
Oh,
in the
good, good,
background.
good, good.
The Angels of Spruce Hill have updated the
While
QR
we were
code. It should
talking, it's
work
like
now.
magic in the background.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, that concludes our session. I thank everyone for their questions. If you have questions that didn't get answered for any reason, Eric, are you okay if I send a few your way, or if I should just ask people to hang on to them until the next session?
They can reach out to us. The QR code here takes everybody to our link tree, so they can find us on the web. They can reach out to us at info@sprucehill.ca. um, Love to answer any questions people have. That's love to do
Okay,
that.
well, you know what? I was starting to panic because I could see the question bubble growing and growing, and I'm like, oh no, but it's people thanking us, wishing
Oh,
everybody a
thank you so
nice
much.
day.
Thank you for that.
I do actually, it's 11:28. I'm going to throw two more questions because I do see some. Um, does installing an AC or heat pump require an electrical permit?
Yes.
Where can they find that?
Where can they find the permit
I
or
guess. Yes, I think so.
City Hall?
City Hall. All right.
Yeah.
And Alexis, you're wondering when session two is. We have not determined that. It will hopefully be in January, but we shall see, and we will absolutely keep all the members informed. Keep an eye on the newsletter. Oh, Eric, do you need a permit to change a dining room ceiling fixture?
No. If you're moving, technically, if you're moving the location of the fixture, yes, but to just replace the fixture itself, no.
Perfect. Those are all the questions. Lots of very grateful people sharing their thanks and wishing good holiday codes. And someone has confirmed that the QR code works now.
Awesome. That's
All right.
wonderful news. That's a little bit of a misstep there on my part. My apologies.
Not at all. I see a lot of familiar names in the Q&A. Christine, I'm looking at you right now. It's really nice to see how many people we had participating and love the questions. Looking forward to session 2. Eric, I really, really have loved doing this with you. I think it went
Oh, thank
fantastic.
you so much. And I with you guys. This is a great opportunity. So no, I'm feel privileged to be here. So thank you very much.
Excellent. All right. Have a great day, everybody. It's a
All right.
wrap.
Thanks a lot. Thanks
Okay.
everyone. Bye
Bye-bye.
now.